War Eagle, Auburn Tiger fans, my name is Chase, and this is my show. Last week on Auburn Sports, what would I actually call this? Last week in Auburn Sports. And this is my channel, Infinite Auburn, and this is a show each week on Thursday nights when I will review the biggest news stories that happened from the previous week. And, just have a little fun with it. And the way if you did not join me last week, that was the first time I did this show, but the format for this will be I'm going to talk about a story, and then in between I will pull some comments, get your input on what's going on, and then we'll move on to the next story. So the first story is a pretty big one in my opinion, and that story is what's going on with Bruce Pearl. So let's get right into it. So if you've not been paying attention to the news today and the past few days, there has been a lot of speculation on whether or not Bruce Pearl is going to stay at Auburn. And that's because the head coaching job at Louisville has opened. And because of that, a lot of people have speculated that Bruce Pearl could go to Louisville. There was a lot of interest from Louisville with Bruce Pearl, but that may not be true. We actually had some comments from Bruce that I'll go over in just a moment. But this is what, let's go ahead and go to the comments. This is what Bruce Pearl actually said. So he was interviewed on an ESPN show, and he was asked about this Louisville job and asked kind of if he would ever go somewhere else. And this is what he said. Jay Will, I was at a basketball school. I was at Tennessee. It was a women's basketball school. But it was a basketball school, so it's listen, when you win, folks are worried you're going to leave, and when you're losing, they're packing your bags. We're either coming or going, coaches are at least. Auburn is a fabulous place, and it's been the best place, Jay, that I've ever been where I can develop players. It's a small college town. Kids come here to grind. They're around other student athletes that are trying to grind, and we're about an hour and a half from Atlanta. And as you know, there are a lot of good players in Atlanta. So that's what Bruce Pearl said about the possibility of going to this Louisville job. And then, really what you have to think about is there's a few things he wants. And if Auburn really wants to keep him, which I hope they do, because he's probably the best thing that's happened to Auburn basketball, period. I'll go ahead and put that out there. And so if they want to keep top talent like Bruce Pearl, they need to pay up. So if the man wants more money, give him more money. The other thing I've heard that he wants a basketball facility that is completely dedicated to men's basketball. And there's a couple ways that could happen. It could happen by them building a separate basketball facility that's just for the men. The other way it could happen is if they were to build a separate facility that is for all the other sports like gymnastics, women's basketball, etc. And then the current Auburn arena could be just for men's basketball. You may be wondering, why would he want this? Why does he want a facility just for men's basketball? Well, right now they have to split the time with all these other sports. So if the guys just want to go in and shoot on the court, they can't do it, because if it's set up for gymnastics or it's set up for women's basketball or whatever it may be, they're not able to just go in and play when they want to. They're not able to have their parents come in and go shoot hoops when they want to. So this is a facility that is very much needed. And if Auburn wants to keep Bruce Pearl around, they need to pay up. So give him what he wants and agree to build this facility. It's got to happen. If it doesn't happen, we don't keep Bruce. That simple. And so I actually just saw something from Justin Lee. So I'm going to read this real quick. So this is about this whole situation with Bruce. He said, news, I can report Auburn is proactively pursuing a contract extension for Bruce Pearl, and that there is comfort within the athletics department that Auburn will be able to offer an extension that will allow him to finish his career at Auburn. That would be huge. So I'm hoping that they will put the money up. They will do whatever they have to, give him whatever he wants, so that he will stay until he's done. That's the best thing that could happen to Auburn basketball. Hey guys, I see James Barnett. Welcome. Gary Mitchell, War Eagle to both of you. But I think this is the biggest story right now is what's going to happen with Bruce. And if Auburn will just pay up, give him the money, give him the salary increase, give him basically a lifetime contract until he finishes out his career, then we're going to be in good shape for a long, long time to come. Because if it's lucrative enough, and he's already spent so much time building this program, there's really no reason for him to leave. Okay, next up, I've got a few player updates. If you have any comments on the Bruce Pearl situation, please put those in before I move on. All right, so with some of these player updates, the first thing, and this, I think all these updates are actually Auburn football updates. So the first one is a transfer that we found out about this week, and that comes from Marquise Robinson. He was a 3-star or 4-star defensive lineman, depending on where you look. He was a freshman. Obviously, he did not see his future with Auburn, so he's entered the transfer portal. This has kind of been a pattern at Auburn in the offseason. We've seen a lot of defensive linemen hit the portal. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 8 of our defensive line guys have entered the portal. And this is partially due to Nick Eason leaving, but it's also partially due to them not seeing a future at Auburn. They don't think they're going to get playing time, so they're going to go somewhere else. The next player news coming out of Auburn football, I'm sure you've seen a lot from this guy, and this is Trevante Citizen. So he keeps teasing Auburn Twitter. He keeps teasing everybody. And he's kind of making us think he's coming to Auburn, and he might be. I don't know, but I'm not sold yet. But there's been a ton of stuff going on between him and running back commit Damari Alston. They keep going back and forth talking about how they're going to be the dynamic duo. They're just going to put up unreal numbers together in the backfield. And I don't know that Citizen is actually committed or not yet. He's posted a ton of stuff related to Auburn, but we've seen that happen in the past. And then at the last minute, they swap and go to another school. So bottom line, this is one we want to keep an eye on, especially going into this next week with National Recruiting Day coming up. But an interesting note about Trevante Citizen is that he did spend 2 nights in Auburn recently. So the interest might be a little more real than I initially thought it was. So this is one, keep an eye on him, running back Trevante Citizen. The next one I've seen a lot of you guys talking about, and that is Jack Pyburn. He is a 6'3", 255-pound, 3-star edge rusher out of Jacksonville, Florida. And he is a guy that he's increased his stock dramatically over this past season. He was kind of on no one's radar for the most part. And then this last football season, he has gained a lot of interest. And most recently, I think I saw on 24/7, they are predicting him almost 100% coming to Auburn. I will be surprised if he does not commit to the Auburn Tigers. Everything I'm seeing looks like it's going to happen. There was actually a picture that was released recently that had most of the defensive coaches. I think it had 3 or 4 of the defensive coaches in a picture along with Coach Harsin, and Harsin's throwing out that finger. So I think it might happen. And so those are 2 I want you to keep your eye on. Jack Pyburn, which I feel like he's probably locked in. And then the other one being running back Trevante Citizen. And I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen or not. But once again, keep your eye out for those 2. Comment from James. If the football team is getting a football-only facility and they aren't winning a lot, then it's a no-brainer for Bruce Pearl to get the facilities that he needs to continue winning 100%. The fact that he's gotten Auburn to number 1, he has made history at Auburn University already. Give him what he wants. Kind of like you said, if the football team is not doing well and they've got all these nice facilities, Why can't Bruce Pearl get this facility? I think they're going to cough up the money. I think they're going to give him what he wants. And I don't think it's going to be an issue. I suspect within the next few days or week at the most, we will hear a little more news about this, because I think they want to lock him down quickly just to shut down these rumors and shut down the speculation, because that's the kind of stuff that hurts you in recruiting. All right, next up. Guys, if you want to help me out, if you're not already a member, this is just something that helps me out. The Booster Club, it's a simple thing. You join the channel, $1.99 a month, cheaper than a cup of coffee. And that's just something that will send some money to me each month and just help me keep that channel, the channel going, and help me keep improving the channel. And as always, super chats are appreciated, but never expected. Coaching updates. Okay, we had a few coaching updates recently, and I kind of hinted at some of these last week, but now we have that a lot of these are for sure. And here's what we've got. We have Jeff Schmedding is officially the defensive coordinator at Auburn. We knew this was a likely probability. We were not sure if it was a for sure thing or not, but as soon as we saw the news about Derek Mason, we thought this might happen. Jeff Schmedding was the previous defensive coordinator for Brian Harsin at Boise State. He's used to working with Brian Harsin, and so this move makes sense. There was also a rumor I saw that Schmedding was the one who was coaching the defense or calling the defensive plays during the Alabama game. I'm not sure how true that is, but if it is true, you saw how good we looked during that game, and that would explain a lot. Next, we got some more news about Derek Mason. So it was rumored at first that Mason was leaving Auburn because he wanted to take a year off. So he wanted to take a year off to be with his family, to step back a little bit. But it appears that that is not even close to true. Not even close. He's going to be at Oklahoma State. So he was hired as the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. And I think really what probably happened is that for some reason, he could not work for Coach Harsin. I don't know the reason behind that, but there had to be some friction between them. And because there's really no other reason. Why do we have this fake story about Derek Mason wanting to take a year off? And then before we know it, what do we see? He's at Oklahoma State. The rumors were true. So I think there's a lot behind the scenes that happened that we're never going to find out about. But, that's how it happens sometimes. Let me go ahead and we have a new member. Thank you, James, for joining the Booster Club, buddy. I appreciate that. And so with Derek Mason, he's gone. But that just shows you, I think Harsin is trying to get his guys in place. He brought a lot of guys from Boise over. He knows who he clicks with, and this is just to be expected. If you have any comments about the coaches, please drop those now before I move on to the next section. All right, moving on. This is kind of this is my catch-all time. So any of the stories that I could not fit into the other categories, I'm shoving them into this part at the end of this video or towards the middle of this video. And there's a lot of interesting stories that came out here. And the first one I want to discuss with you, I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but this had to do with the Auburn athletic department losing $9.7 million in 2021. $9.7 million. And so I'm over on this article on AL.com. And I will try to throw a link to this in the description. But in this article on AL.com, it says that for the previous year in 2020, they reported a record revenue of $17.9 million in profit. And this past year dropped $30 million in 1 year to see a $9.7 million loss. That is just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. How do you go from a 17.9, almost $18 million profit to a an almost $10 million loss. Something's going on, something's up. They give a pretty good breakdown in this article on what was going on, what happened, but they're saying that most of this is due to, and sorry, it's a year off from what I told you, but most of this is due to the loss of ticket sales during the 2020 season. So this is just an effect of the pandemic. So it's not as crazy as it sounds. Yes, a $30 million drop is a lot, but when you cut down the ticket sales to almost nothing, what do you expect to happen? Thank you, Kenneth, for joining the live stream. All right, the next story I got for you. Obviously, we got to talk about the win over Kentucky for just a minute. So the big thing about this win is that we knew when it happened, Auburn was going to be number one, and that's exactly what happened afterwards. They beat I think number 12 team at the time. It was a very good game to watch, and I was actually watching this with one of my friends who is a big Kentucky fan. So this was a great game, a good back and forth. Hey, Stu, sorry about that. Stu, you missed some stuff, but that's okay. If you can catch it on the replay, buddy. Thanks for joining in now anyway. But going back to the Kentucky game. So this was a huge game because we felt like we were slighted during the last game. We were left at number 2. They put Gonzaga over Auburn, and a lot of fans felt like we were slighted and they did not rank us properly. Specifically, they placed a lot of blame on Jesse Newell because Jesse Newell is the one that put us at number 9, and his vote alone is really what took us down to number 2. But this past weekend against Kentucky, we did what we had to do, took care of business, and it was easy to see that Auburn had to be number 1. And luckily that happened. There were a lot of other crazy stories that happened that same weekend that I want to get into. But first, can we talk about the game that just happened against Missouri? We went from a convincing win against Kentucky. We get the number 1 bid, first time in history. And then we follow it up with this game against Missouri at Missouri. And we barely win. We get a struggle win, 55-54, something like that. It was a 1-point victory. A little embarrassing. Our shooting percentages were way off. We did not look good at all. We were awful, just to be honest. We were awful. And it took a 5-point run by KD at the end of the game to seal the victory in what really should have been a really easy game, with the exception of it being on the road. Yeah, Erica, it was crazy. That was one of those that that had me a little stressed out. They don't call them the cardiac cats for nothing. Blake, what's up, buddy? And Erica, again, thank you for joining. And the last thing I wanted to talk about around this Kentucky Auburn game is what happened before the game occurred. So we had the students decided to camp out. I just thought this was incredibly cool. So the students camped out before the game. They had this huge tent city. They were having a ton of fun. I can only imagine if I'd been in Auburn at the time, I would have been there. I probably would have brought a couch with me as well. And a lot of cool stuff happened because, we enjoy sports. We can get wrapped up into it. And, we can kind of get our emotions tied up into it. But ultimately, this is the kind of stuff that I feel like it's all about. And that is where we show that we're a community, we're a team. It's about more than just the game. And we saw people from all over, Auburn fans, Auburn alumni, really reaching out to support these students to help them have a good time and help them kind of make it through the night because it was freezing cold. And Allie Davison, I believe that's her name. Allie Davison, she's done some stuff with AL.com. She's on Twitter all the time. She organized an effort to get pizza and supplies and all this stuff. And I think she raised almost $7,000, $7,500, something like that. And it was crazy. But she got pizza delivered, fed the kids. They had a great time. I don't know that they got any sleep, but they certainly showed up for the game in a big way. And they were loud. That's the loudest I think that stadium's ever been. And ultimately, Auburn got the victory. Afterwards, there were some people who, and so there's a picture of some of the players bringing pizza out to everyone. But afterwards, there were some people that were not very happy with the way the grounds were left. And so I think Kentucky fans took video of the area outside of Auburn Arena. And if you saw that video, the place was absolutely just trashed. And so they had some comments that I did not agree with. The kids were having a good time. Yes, they made a mess, but I just don't think, you know what, let me show you this video, because I just don't think the comments are fair. This is just a quick little 15 to 20-second clip that I want to show you, and then we'll talk about it. So let me show you this clip to you real quick. So, guys, as you can see, it's not exactly the way they said. You saw somebody said that something about rolling trees and us just trashing the place. And yes, it was a mess. But from what I heard, the students helped clean it up after the game. They wanted to get in the game. They were trying to get their seats. But they helped clean up the place after the game. You saw that there were people out there power washing the sidewalks. They got the mess cleaned up. So it's not the end of the world. Could it have been handled better? Maybe, but ultimately what was supposed to happen happened. I think I even heard that Jarquez Hunter was out there with some of the other players from football, and I'm not sure about the basketball team, but they were out there working together. They cleaned it up. They got the place back to normal. So I just think people made a lot more out of that than they had to, and it was just a little unnecessary. All right, guys, what you got? Kenneth, I can't believe we almost lost. We almost lost to Missouri. It was a little pitiful. That was a rough game to watch. If we're going to lose, that is not the team I wanted to lose to. We've got some games coming up that I am a little worried about. I don't think we're going to make it unscathed to the tournament. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so there's a few games I'm concerned about. One of those is coming up very soon against Oklahoma. But past that, the games I'm worried about, there's some road games. Arkansas, that's one I'm a little concerned about. Honestly, the most embarrassing loss we could get, I don't think it's going to happen. But if we were going to have an embarrassing loss, if we lost to Alabama at home, that I can't handle that. So I'm hoping that's the one that I'm hoping the students and everybody else shows up and they make that place the loudest place it has ever been, even louder than Kentucky, because I can't handle a loss to Alabama. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but I also didn't think we were going to win by 1 point against Missouri. Eric said, embarrassing, but isn't a win a win? The team dug deep to win despite the lack of shooting. The bench is crazy talented. The whole team deserves a War Eagle. 100%. Erica, a win is a win. 100%. I absolutely agree with that. And this is part of the reason why I think Bruce Pearl's strategy is just on point for our team, because he really has, even though we have, a bench, he really plays 11 players. So we don't just have like your starting 5 and everybody else gets a little bit of time. He tries to play 10 to 11 players pretty equally. That way, if something happens, we're never truly out of it. We're never truly gone. We can always come back. We can always keep up, because no matter who's playing, when you've got 11 starters, basically, you're in good shape. And we have, now that would be cruel. Yes, it would. And James says, I agree with you, Erica, 100%. So, as I was mentioning, we've got a few games coming up that I am concerned about: Arkansas, Oklahoma, and the good news is I think we're basically a lock for one of those top spots. We're going to have to do a lot. We would have to have a full collapse for us to not get a 1 or 2 seed. I personally think if as long as we lose no more than 1 or 2 games the rest of this season, we're in good shape to get a number 1 seed, which would be fantastic because if we can get that, we've got a good run to get at least to the Sweet 16. I would be very shocked if we got a number 1 bid and did not make it to the Sweet 16 at least. So that would be a big help to the team is if we get one of those top 4 spots, one of those number 1 seeds, then we are a whole lot more likely to make it to the end of the tournament and ultimately get a national championship out of this thing. Because that would be just the ultimate way to end this season with one of the most entertaining, wildest teams we've had. Katie Johnson, the whole crew is just unbelievable. So lose to Bama at home would be cruel. Yes, that's what I thought you were saying. Yes, it would be absolutely cruel because after we've kind of mocked them and had a good time at their expense, I can assure you, if we lose to Bama, Twitter is not a place I want to be after that game. And in the arena is not a place I want to be, honestly. So I'm hoping we will get it done. I think we will. There's just a few other games I'm not so sure about. Does anybody else have any final comments? Because I've gotten to the end of my content. And unless anybody else has anything else they want to talk about, I'm going to head out in about 30 seconds. Otherwise, I'll keep it going. All right, what you got? James, Chase, in your opinion, does Bruce Pearl continue to play 9 to 10 players as it gets closer to March? Or does he continue all the way through the tournament? I just think it's in his benefit to continue to play as many of these guys as he can. I think he will. I think we'll see him give some of them more time, so we might see it dwindle down to like 8 or 9 instead of the 10, 11 players we're seeing now. Because if somebody gets on a hot streak, you're going to want to leave them in. But we've seen some of our players get in there and just hit brick after brick, and when that's happening, you don't want to leave those players in. But the positive to playing such a wide rotation like this, so many players, is that your players are constantly hot. They're in a rhythm, but they're never just cold sitting on the bench. And so if something does happen, you have a player get hurt, or you notice that you put in a combination of players and they're just playing really well. Like I believe we saw, I'm drawing a blank now. Who was it that was playing so well with Kessler? Was it Green and Kessler? When you have like a combo going on like that, you don't want to let that go. So getting closer. So to answer your question, James, getting closer to March, I think we'll see it tighten up a little bit. But ultimately, it seems like this is what Bruce wants to do, period, because you're constantly keeping fresh legs in the game. And the only thing is, if somebody's on a hot streak, I don't see him pulling them out because there's no benefit to Auburn or benefit to Bruce Pearl in doing that. Or any other questions? Thank you, James, for that one. Y'all have been fun tonight, by the way. Blake, I missed this, buddy. Let me come back to it. Blake, where? I'll find it. I know you threw something in there. Here we go. The thing is, with the Mizzou game, was close because of the poor shooting on offense. The shooting was terrible. I think it was like 18 to 20% with a lot of our guys. Our defense was still on point, 100%, Blake. And why we won in spite of our offense. And that's right. Our offense was just way off that game. Shooting was off. Nobody could get on a hot streak. I think part of that is to do with being on the road. But outside of that, I don't know what was going on because I've not seen us shoot that bad all season. And luckily, our defense did enough to keep us in that game. Envision. Do you think we will take home the W? All right, Envision, I need you to clarify that just a little bit. Take home the W from what? Are you talking about the upcoming game against Oklahoma? You're talking about the W for the whole season, like the championship W? Give me some clarification on that. War Eagle Pate Productions. Or envision, what did you mean by take home the W? Right there. See, he's still in here? Okay. Well, if I see something from him, I'll try to answer that for you. I'm just not sure. If you want to talk about, are we going to get the championship for the whole the game at Oklahoma? Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. This one I'm a little worried about. I think we will get 1 or 2 losses before March, and I think this might be one of them. The other one, if I was to pick 2 games we're going to lose, I think it's going to be Oklahoma and Arkansas. I couldn't tell you for sure what's going to happen. I can't predict, but I feel like this just feels like a game that could go against us. And so I would not be surprised if we lose against Oklahoma. I mean, we're on a great streak right now. What are we, 19-1? We're on a great streak right now. It's going to snap sometime. But ultimately, we've had a fantastic season so far. We've still got a lot of season left. But I don't see us making it completely with just one loss the rest of this season. There's no way. So I do think there's a chance we lose this one against Oklahoma. Who do you think our first conference loss? Blake, I think that's going to be Arkansas. It's at Arkansas, and it just feels like a trap game to me. And I think that's one I'm a little concerned about, and I'm a little worried about. Raise the trophy, 100%, Erica. Kenneth, I think we got better with our offenses. I think our offense is great, but not against Mizzou. We look terrible. We look terrible against Mizzou. I fear rematch in Kentucky, whether that's the March tourney or SEC tourney. They're going to be hungry to beat us. 100%. They are going to be looking for revenge, especially with how we beat them. We beat them and got the #1 ranking. Our fans dunked on them all over Twitter. Like, they just made it a whole thing. And then on top of it, their fans made nothing but excuses. All they could say is that we had hurt players, we had injuries, and that's why Auburn won. If we didn't have that, then we would have won the game. So they are going to be hungry for a win if we play them again. And I think there is a good chance we're going to see them again, whether that is in the tournament in March or whether that is in the SEC tournament. So that would be, obviously that one would be a concern. Luckily for the regular season, we don't play them again. We're done playing Kentucky, but playing them again, especially if it's not at Auburn, I would be a little concerned about that one. What do you guys think about? I've told you what I think. What do you guys think about Oklahoma? What do you think is going to happen this weekend? Everybody quiet now? I'm starting to think my chat is like a little bit behind reality. I think I'm off by like a minute. I'm about to pull it up on YouTube so I can actually see. Oh, there we go. Got to go. All right, guys. Well, that is all I have for this one. Thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel and you like this kind of content, please hit subscribe. Please like the video so more people see this. And also, if you are not a channel member, super cheap, $1.99. It'll auto renew each month, and that just helps me keep this channel going, helps me pay for this software I'm using right now for to broadcast to you guys, and some other stuff. I have some monthly expenses I pay out of pocket, but anything you guys do helps me keep it going. Blake says, I fear a loss. And Stuart, I think we win. Stuart, I hope you are right. Thank you guys for watching this one. I can't wait to see what happens against Oklahoma. And I will see you next Thursday at 9 o'clock. War Eagle.